everyone! Today I'm going to share with you my 5 best tips for a beginner gardener here in Houston, Zone 9. Stick around, I'll have a bonus tip at the end.
Spring is almost here in Texas. My plants are just starting to recover from the deep freeze we had in February. We live in the suburbs of Houston, and we have an average size backyard. I started vegetable gardening 2 years ago and struggled to get anything really growing other than kale. I have a big secret about kale at the end of this video. This past year, during the pandemic, I upped my gardening game and the dedication paid off. I learned several tricks and tried and true strategies that I put to use but had been previously resistant to do so. Tip number 1, watch the calendar. I learned after many failed attempts that I had been planting way too late in the season. By the time I noticed the lush pots of vegetables and herbs at the garden centers, it was already too late in April or May, and the heat would soon keep my poor plants from thriving. Plant growth slows down considerably after 85 degrees. Following a planting calendar was a game changer for me. I used something I found on the web from the Texas A&M Agri site and other such resources for my area, which is Zone 9. I gathered this info in one spot. I literally took the time and put everything on my iPad. I have an app called Notes, and everything in one spot made me see the bigger picture. I highly recommend this exercise to all beginner gardeners. I set out to organize my seeds in accordance with the calendar. I literally grabbed an unused photo album and selected each one of the seeds in accordance to the calendar that needs to be planted by month. So in January, I would have all the seed packs that needed to be seeded either indoors or outdoors. And I would put them all under the January tab. And then the same for February and so forth. And here in Houston, we have 2 planting seasons, in the spring and in the fall. So for the seeds that could be planted either way, in the spring or in the fall, I would put them in the first season that came first. Tip number 2, start seeds indoors. This practice will ensure that you will always have plants ready to fill those empty spots in your vegetable garden and to replace those plants that have been harvested or attacked by pests. I use a setup of 2 LED lights that have timers and an adjustable mechanism to move the lights up as the plants grow. Recycling those strawberry plastic cartons have worked for me. I cut off the lids, fill them with potting soil, drop in the seeds, spray them with a mixture of water and kelp fertilizer, and watch them grow. The kelp fertilizer really works. I tested with and without it, and the difference in plant growth is striking. Oh, and don't forget to set your lights really close to the dirt so you don't get leggy plants. Tip number 3, plant in profusion. Pack your beds with plants because you don't know what's going to take off. Cutworms, poor drainage, too much heat, bad quality seeds, birds and squirrels are just a few of the reasons your garden may not produce. By planting more than you think you need, you will, in the worst case, have enough to feed the wildlife, and in the best case, you should have plenty to feed your family and to share or donate. Tip number 4, plant a tapestry. That means squeeze as many selections or types of plants in your pots or beds as you think you can. The variety will ensure that pests get confused and don't destroy your entire crop. You might be able to get your tomato plant growing in that big pot in your patio, but not the one in the middle of a well-diverse garden bed. Look into companion plantings. I will link a reference down below that cites good plant combinations. Meanwhile, let's take a look at my asparagus and strawberry bed. Asparagus is one of those vegetables that you plant once, wait for 3 years, and they will produce asparagus for the next 60 years. And it's a perfect companion planting with strawberries. The strawberries will grow up on top and spread out and fill in the area while the asparagus put out the shoots. So this is too small, too thin to pick. And the best thing for you to do when the asparagus is at about the size is just to let it be and let it grow, let it get stronger and send energy down to its roots for next year. And the spring crop that's coming up in a couple of weeks. So these are a little bit bigger. And something that big is probably edible. But I'll probably just wait. They say about pencil size, but it has to be a little big pencil. I'm going to show you how to plant your strawberry plants. Just a few days later, and look at all the berries already popping up. Bare root strawberries arrive with long roots, usually inside a plastic bag. You must hydrate the roots for 2 hours before cutting the smaller roots 2 to 3 inches from the crown. To plant, simply spread the roots out and place it in a little mound of dirt. In this case, making sure to avoid the asparagus roots. Give it a little drink and watch it grow. I just planted mine back in February. Tip number 5, fertilize and relocate. My biggest mistake as a new gardener was to try to grow my vegetables with only the nutrients from the soil and the dismal amount of nutrition afforded by organic fertilizers at a misguided frequency. Once I started fertilizing weekly with good old Miracle-Gro, and the plants just took off, I knew I was going the right way. I decided it was okay to add nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium to my beds, but I still avoid insecticides. Also, once your plants have reached a certain size, it's okay to transfer them to different beds to fit your spacing needs. And now for our bonus tip. Grow kale year-round in Houston. If you find a shaded spot, just throw the seeds out there. They will germinate in just a few days, and you will have kale in just a few weeks. And you can eat from it year-round, and the plant will not die back in the winter. I'm so glad you joined me today, visiting my garden and learning our tips. Gardening is so rewarding, and even when changes happen, they're usually beautiful changes. Thank you for stopping by, and see you next time. But don't forget to subscribe.